It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
You want to answer a legal question? I know you like to tread into those waters, which sounds awesome.
We're not attorneys.
No, this is great. We're going to do the legal one. This is from Matt. He says, if I want to start a small independent side business, is it worth it to establish an LLC to protect myself, or does it make sense to stick with a sole proprietorship? Maybe one of the things that would be helpful to talk about is different types of business structure. So, there's sole proprietorship, and then there's LLC, and then there's this thing called an S Corp out there. And how do you decide when you should think about moving in that direction? What are some of the thoughts that go into the process?
First of all, let me be clear. We are not attorneys. And here's something I have been humbled by a little bit is when we moved from the state of Georgia to the state of Tennessee, we recognized very quickly every state is a little different on how they look at different corporate structures. I'll give you a real quick experience share. Most businesses in Georgia, once you get over a certain level of profitability, the small businesses are S corporations, where the owners will pay themselves reasonable salaries for what they're doing inside the company, and then they also are then taking dividend distributions on their ownership side of the income. Well, you move to Tennessee and you recognize very quickly, well, there's this thing called franchise and excise tax here in Tennessee. So what worked in Georgia doesn't necessarily work in Tennessee. So I would tell you, make sure you do a lot of research on what is your state income tax situation? How are they paying the bills? Because we have a new employee that started actually yesterday, and they go, hey, there's no state income tax here on wages. How does the state pay the bills? And I was like, corporations. I was like, it's not tax-free for businesses. So, it's just make sure you understand what's going on in each state. But I can tell you this, some of the corporate structures like a single member LLC. If you're a sole proprietor, meaning you're the only owner, this is kind of a side hustle or a brand new corporation or a brand new business. You can structure as something called like a single member LLC that gives you some legal protection, but then also it's kind of a what's called a disregarded entity, meaning that it doesn't file a separate tax return. It just goes on your Schedule C of your own personal tax return. That's something that could give you a little layer of additional protection from liability, but it doesn't rise to the level of complexity that you have to go hire a separate tax return preparer for the business and other things.
One of the things that I would think about, and I have friends all the time, and I don't know why, I guess it's just a circle I run in, that are all dreamers. They come up with these big grandiose ideas, these amazing businesses that they're going to go start. And their very first thing they think is, hey, I'm already thinking about the website, and I'm thinking about, I got to go get this entity set up, and I got to do this and this. And I'm like, hey, slow down for a second. Yeah. Let's make sure you actually have a business. Let's make sure that there's actually a customer there. So a lot of times I tell folks, and again, always seek the counsel of a legal advisor, but you have to figure out, when does this side thing that you're doing actually turn into a business? If it's something where you want to start writing articles, I'm making that up, and you want to have a side gig, is the first thing you should do go out and pay an attorney to stroke up like a legal entity? Maybe or maybe not, depending on your situation, because you have to think about, what's the side gig I'm getting into? What's the purpose for the organization? Meaning, do I need liability protection? Is that one of the reasons that I want to make sure that I keep myself protected? Or is there some unique thing with the individual state tax code? Make sure you understand those things before you complicate it too soon. Would you agree with that?
I do, and I think there's multiple points here. First of all, make sure it's a viable business and don't get busy doing nothing. Yep. Because here's what I mean by this is, when I first started my company in 2002, I had the cleanest books in town, meaning that I was reconciling. I reconcile every month, but I'm just saying every day I was putting in transactions. I was making sure that I was breaking things out much deeper than they needed to be, because you know what? It was easy for me to spend time in the company because I was trying to avoid what the company would actually need or what I was trying to create, which was I was going to go out there, become very uncomfortable and go find clients. So I found myself doing all this administrative stuff instead of actually working on what would create a successful business. Make sure, and I think this is the point Bo was also hitting at, that you really have a business.
That's right.
Because I think a lot of people like the idea of daydreaming, so they will go do corporate structures. They'll go spend all the time on bookkeeping. Meanwhile, they didn't go get any clients. And so it's not even a viable business. You spend all this money. Let's make sure you have a viable business there before you go spend a lot of effort on it. Also talk to an attorney, an accountant, just to make sure, because like I said, we don't know you specifically. And then on that side of the discussion, don't just assume because you incorporate or structure something everything's deductible. Because I'm always amazed at people who think that if you own a company, well, everything's now deductible.
All of a sudden, it's tax deductions everywhere.
Go buy a suit, at the department store,
deductible.
No, you can just go buy any vehicle, deductible.
I had an outdoor meeting, needed sunglasses, bought some new sunglasses.
There has to be a business purpose, but there's a lot of people I think that have this false sense that if you just go incorporate, now your life is fully deductible. That is not legal tax avoidance. That's more of getting into
gray.
Tax evasion. So just make sure you understand how businesses run, why you pay taxes, and how to do it in a compliant way that will keep you on solid ground. Because you never want to sit across from an IRS agent with shady transactions on your financial statements. And then also, just know if you start having success, it's okay to go ask for professional help.
That's right.
To make sure you measure twice, cut once. Because, by the way, guys, like Bo and I are doing something right now with a building. And I think the attorneys and everybody's like, wow, you guys are putting a lot of effort into the design of the structure of the entity. I'm like, yeah, because you know what? It's hard to unwind this later. Right. Let's do it right the first time. And that's why you need to make sure it's viable, but you also really prepare yourself.
Yep, love it. Great question.